I'm realizing more and more about a lot of times who we are, who we think we are, is not who we really are.
Yeah.
It is the profile we've created of ourselves that we're living out day in and day out.
I remember that being like the first point where I was like, okay, I don't want my life to be this. What is the point? I don't want to be living in this kind of like deep, dark space. I don't even know what I want for my life, but I just know it's not this.
It's not this. Which is a great starting point. And I think we don't put enough value. I think there's a lot of value put into, you need to know what you want and where you want to take your life. But there's an incredible amount of value in knowing also what you don't want.
So I said to her, I really want to be doing well and I want to be successful. And then she said to me, why is it so important for you to be successful? And that took me back. And I was like, wow, why is it so important for me to be successful? And I think that's when I started asking the real questions.
Get your life, 2020, get with it. What are you doing? What else are you going to do except get your life? Today on Get Your Life 2020, we sit down with Emeline Nsingi Nkosi, a bilingual freelance broadcast journalist and producer based between London and West Africa, currently producing and presenting content for BBC World News in Business Africa, BBC Afrique's Cash Eco and Question d'Argent, BBC's Africa's Money Daily, and BBC Sport Afrique and Africa. She also currently anchors Travel XP's travel shows, having covered Gabon, Ethiopia, and Finland in 2019. Emmeline has a background in fashion textiles, named Hillary Alexander's Secret 7 to watch, and nominated for the Ethical Award at Graduate Fashion Week in 2012. She worked as a graphic designer before taking up a broadcaster and producing position at GH1 TV in Ghana in 2016. During her time, she founded and presented 2 seasons of one of Ghana's most loved TV shows, The Core. Along with producing 3 seasons of Reveal the Bull Array, launching E-Zone on the evening news, and rebranding a lifestyle segment on the morning catalog show, Emmeline has contributed to online publications, notably Tandy K and Lux Africa, since early 2016. Concentrating mostly on inspiring women of color, she has interviewed Angela Bassett, Ide Hassan, Zuriel Oduwale, and covering art exhibitions, luxury travel, launches, and fashion in London and internationally. Today, we talk visualization, meditating, and going for what we want. We have a great conversation with Emmeline on how she has made meditation and visualization work in her life, and she sits on the couch today to share all her insights. Hey guys, Nana Konamah here, and as you know, I am on a mission to help you find your authentic self. Speaking of a more authentic life, our guest today, Emeline Nsingi Nkosi, is doing just that, using her platform to tell stories about the African continent to help people live a more enjoyable and free life. Emeline, thank you so much for being here. I just want to say, we put this together, we called you, and your response was just amazing. And so I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Nana. That was like a beautiful introduction. I know I was kind of like looking at you, but I was like, this is so good. And I'm so honored to be here. I feel like having seen you grow over the past year, 2 years, to have this platform now is just like breathtaking.
So, I've known you on and off for about 3 years, and our relationship has deepened. And in the last, I think, year and a half, we've really taken time to sort of check in on one another, check in on where we are, check in on how we're growing. And we've spoken a lot about sort of the different shifts that we've been taking. And it all started from going to yoga together, and now we're here talking about our journey in the last few years. So for me, this feels very full circle, and I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful to have. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what really motivates you.
So for me, I was born in France. I grew up there for about 8 years and then moved to the UK. Once I got to the UK, I think for me it was very interesting because I never felt like I really belonged. And I think that was kind of how Well, I think that's kind of really shaped me in trying to always just be the best that I can be, because I didn't speak English, right? So I was like, I don't want to look like I'm, kind of standing out from all of these young kids. So I was, just a bit OCD, I would try and learn English, I would try and do all of my spellings. And I think that has kind of stayed with me like throughout my life, is just trying to do extra to kind of get to where I want to be. So then I was lucky to kind of go back and forth between Paris and the UK, because my father and the rest of my family live in France. So I'd kind of have like I'd say the dual nationality. So I'd live like in the rural UK countryside and then go to the bustling city life. And I feel like for me, kind of also being able to go in between the two has marked me in my work and my personality, and kind of knowing how to adapt and be flexible. I think what people don't know as well, that I studied fashion textiles, and throughout my whole life, that is literally all I wanted to do. From when I was young, when I was a new kid at school, that was the way that I actually bonded with people. I would draw, and then I was like, right, this is good. People like me for this, So I was like, I'm going to be the designer, and that is all I'm going to do. I loved history and I loved English, but that was all I wanted to do until I got to uni. It was like I did fashion textiles, got to the end of my first year, and I realized, what am I doing? Like, this is not me. I would be extra, and I would do, work experiences whenever I could. And I realized I can't find my place in this world. I'm not really getting on with seeing how you do pattern cutting. I'm not really fitting in, even though I love making print. I didn't like the fact that, I was always kind of had wet hands, and, you're kind of like in a dark place a lot of the times. And so I was really struggling to realize, how is my life going to look? And I feel that for me, university was a great place of growth, but then also so dark. And I felt like I ended up being depressed a lot of the time. So I ended up kind of going into therapy and trying to use cognitive behavioral therapy to kind of try and get over that. But I was very lucky that I had somebody that kind of guided me at the beginning of my second year and said to me, look, if you still love making prints, but you don't really like fashion anymore, why don't you try and use that for something else? So I was like, okay. So I started making cushions, right? And I was obsessed with everything organic, everything kind of natural. And that kind of went hand in hand with me getting really bad acne, and then chopping all my hair off. So I had like really bad acne with like really short hair. And I was like, okay, I'm living more of this natural life. So why don't I also apply that to my craft? So I was obsessed with making these cushions like 100% organic, from the print, to the materials that I was using, to even the threads. Like, I was obsessed. But what was really great is that it brought me to different places, right? So I would network. I would go to maybe like fairs, trade shows, any talks that they had. And it was great to kind of be behind that cover of a student, because people are more open to talking to you, like, oh, you're a student, let me give you some advice. So for me, life is really about kind of learning as much as I can from everywhere. And the big turning point was my final year. I was like, right, I need to kind of finish this year. But then we did our dissertation. And my dissertation was on natural hair. And everyone was like, but how is this fashion related? I was like, hair is kind of fashionable. I don't care, I'm going with it. And doing that research for that, like over the summer, I was consumed. I would wake up, no lie, in the morning, like around 6 a.m. with no alarm clock. I would just get up like raring to go. And I remember nobody had to be behind me. Sometimes it's really hard to kind of motivate yourself. Right. I had none of that. I was reading, I was going to the library, I was filming people, doing interviews, and I had never filmed anybody before. Like, I mean, when I look back, the sound is awful. But having that kind of experience of knowing what it's like to be in flow has kind of like stuck with me. When I finished uni, I went into advertising because I was like, I don't want to go into fashion. And it was 3 years where I think I did the most of my work for where I am now during that time. Because I had so many moments. I mean, it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't that. It was super boring, monotonous, it was robotic, and it would be like 9 to 6, very strict. I had every job that we did was like hour slot. So it was like super machine work. And for me, I came from like this like fashion design background where I was all over the place. So for me, that was great. But I just didn't know what to do with myself, like, honestly. And then I feel like slowly I kind of worked on myself and different things, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into that after. But yeah, I went into more graphic design after, moved to Ghana after getting a job, and then here I am now.
Wow. So, because, I think it's really interesting when I speak with people, and typically when we hear about somebody's success story, we're usually, really focused on like the good stuff, the happy stuff. I got this, dream job, and then I went to this amazing school and I made it. And part of a major part of what this platform about is really bringing to light those soul level sort of like stories and processes that I think don't get as much shine. And so my natural next question would be, you said you worked on yourself, and what was that? How did that start? And what was sort of the goal? Because what this is going to lead to is the main conversation, which is really about how to use visualization towards the future that we want, or the life that we want. And so for you, what was the beginning, the touch point of, okay, I'm going to work on myself?
Yeah. And what is that?
What is that?
And then what did I do, and what was the main view? I think the first point was probably when I felt depressed in between the winter of the final year of university.
Yeah.
I remember...
which apparently is very common, because I had the same struggle.
Yeah, but nobody talks about it, and I think it's something that is so important actually to discuss. I remember that winter, I was on a film set because I was helping out in the costume department, another job that I realized I can't really do. Try out like all the work placements, because then you know where you would fit. That would be like a huge advice for me. And I decided, I realized I had like fury and rage. And it came like this, like, "Argh!" And it was like this roaring energy. And I was like, and it kind of took me back, because in that moment, it was like, it plummeted, my mood plummeted. It's like, I'm so annoyed, and what am I going to do with life? And I have no idea what I'm going to do at the end of university. And it just, everything came down, down, down. And it got to a point where I was like, what's the point of this? And I thought, whoa. And it happened like once or twice. And there was one point, because I'd think to myself, oh, maybe I should get help or something. And it'll pass. And I'd be like, it's fine. And it came back. And there was one time I remember they'd asked me to kind of get somebody's clothing or something back from the van. And I remember I was running up these stairs, and I was surrounded by literally just this empty stadium and on the shoot location, and just having all of these emotions. And it felt like all my emotions kind of filled this whole stadium. And I was just like, this is too much. I need help. And I remember just getting my phone and being like, right, therapist, like, going to my doctors and just calling like, hi, can I please come and see you? And then from the doctors, she kind of like referred me to a CBT, cognitive behavior therapist. I don't know if that really helped, but I remember that being like the first point where I was like, okay, I don't want my life to be this. What is the point? I don't want to be living in this kind of like deep, dark space. I don't even know what I want for my life, but I just know it's not this.
It's not this. Which is a great starting point. And I think we don't put enough value. I think there's a lot of value put into, you need to know what you want and where you want to take your life. But there's an incredible amount of value in knowing also what you don't want.
Yeah. And I know that like in visualization, we'll go into it after, but it's very much about visualize only the good stuff. But I think when you're at your lowest point, actually, it's good knowing that's what you don't want. So from that, I mean, I went into therapy, and I was like, okay, I don't know if I like this. And then in the summer, when I finished university, I was working in a retail job, and I remember I was like, this can't be it. Like, this is not it. Like, what is my career? I don't know what it is, but this is not it. And I started going to see a homeopath. And that was amazing because it wasn't even just like the actual like homeopathy, like the actual pilule they gave you. It was more the fact that I could speak to someone. And there's one question that really stuck with me. She said to me, because I said to her, you know, I really want to be doing well and I want to be successful. And then she said to me, why is it so important for you to be successful? And that took me back. And I was like, wow. Why is it so important for me to be successful? And I think that's when I started asking the real questions. So I think for me, the goal was, I knew I wanted to be this person that was successful. What did success mean for me? It meant being financially free. It meant living to my own accord and what I wanted to do and like work-wise, having my own time and schedule, being able to be, I saw myself as like this amazing woman, you know, who like kind of drives into her, like I have this whole like visualization. We won't go too much into it, I guess we'll go after, but it was, I had this view of who I was and I was like, I need to get to that.
I'm realizing more and more about a lot of times who we are, who we think we are is not who we really are. Yeah. It is the profile we've created of ourselves that we're living out day in and day out.
I think for me, when I was like a teenager, let's say 18, like I had, you know, like kind of straightened hair. I was that kind of like, quote unquote, pretty girl. When I started getting really bad acne and I cut my hair off, I think for me, that's kind of where I shed off that past. And I shed whoever that person was, and whoever that person was in the past stays there. Great, very happy to be in that person, but now who am I? And I feel like it really helped because when you go from being like really cute and like being like, oh, you know, I don't have to care about, I care about my skin, I always have, but I don't need to take extra care, and I'm not thinking about, I'm eating healthy, but I'm not overthinking it. But then it was like, boom, acne everywhere. And it was like, and there's nothing, you know what it was? It's like there was nothing I could do that would make it better. And so for me, it was like, right, I'm just gonna have to work on other parts of me. I'm gonna have to think about who am I, what do I wanna do, you know? And so I realized that, okay, I'm gonna start doing the work and work towards whatever that is I want to do. And it wasn't until I would say I think it was the second year that I started working. A friend of mine invited me to like an audition. So I went to this audition and I ended up booking the job. But even before then, I was hooked. I was like, I'm getting in front of a camera. I'm getting this high that I haven't felt since, I don't know, maybe I was like running and athletic when I was younger. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want more. And I didn't know exactly what this was. I'm like, I can't make a job of just being in front of the camera, doing what? And I went to Milan, I remember, after a heartbreak, and a friend of mine was working for Versace out there, and I was like, okay, I'm coming for like 5 days. I had no money, I was in debt, and I was like, I have no money, but I'm gonna come. And it was great, because I had this conversation with her, and she's like, oh, so you wanna be a presenter? And I was like, because it's... Is
that a possibility?
Is that a possibility? Yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, you wanna be a presenter? Like, just on MTV or something. And I was like, because it was like the first time that someone had mirrored back to me what I kind of wanted to do.
Yeah, what you had felt.
And I didn't know what the words were. And from that, I kind of started doing the work. I was like, right, okay, maybe that's what I'm going to do. So I ended up going back to the UK, and I had the camera that I'd started filming the documentary. I'd plonk it up on my kitchen, and listen, I would get, I've never posted this, I'd get vegetable boxes, deliveries every week. I would unpack the vegetable box and I'd be like, so in this week I got some some pepper, I got some lettuce, and let me see what I can make, and make some food. Then I'll do this whole skin vlog, and I was like, this is my skin concerns, and this is what it looks like without any makeup. And I remember I went to the US, also with no money, but because my cousin was there for a year, I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I posted the first video on skincare when I was there. And I remember telling someone like, oh my gosh, this skincare video is gonna come out. And the person watching was like, oh, it's not that bad. And I was like, oh, maybe it's not. But I felt like because I'd owned who I was, there was nothing else that I couldn't do. So I started slowly working towards what this presenting thing was. I didn't know exactly, is it on TV? Is it online? Is it for like music? I didn't know. But it's like, I just kept working towards that. But at the same time, I'm still, trying to meditate. I'm still going to yoga, trying to live a super healthy life. I'm listening and doing my intentions every day. I remember at one point I redid my whole bedroom.
And I think what's really exciting about your story is realizing that you don't have to be stuck.
No.
I think a lot of times we have this idea that, okay, if I have to do this. And I've realized that in life, there's no such thing as have to do one thing. You can gladly get up and take the shift and move your life in a different direction.
Yeah.
So I want to take this back. So in all the shifts that you make, because somebody is probably looking at this conversation thinking, you know what? She's done so much. She's made so many moves. At what point would you say that visualization became important to your journey?
I was making vision boards probably in my final year of uni. And then I would update them like every 6 months when the vision would kind of change. Mm-hmm. But visualization for me became super important in those first 3 years of my kind of professional life, because I felt stuck. I didn't have, it's your first job, you don't have enough experience to move to a different job. And I knew that actually that next job that I go to, I would really like it to be the presenting job. But that was super important is during those 3 years, and then even continuously. And I think updating it is very important, because without realizing it, to be honest, it's very interesting actually looking back. I have them all at my mum's, and whenever I go to my mum's, I go in the garage and I check out these vision boards. And there is one that's like, takes my breath away every time I look at it, because when I look at the top left corner, half of those things have like happened. And it will be things like, I had a picture of Africa, like the map of Africa, and it has lots of like flying lines everywhere, like, as if you are flying. And then I had like, I think BBC Africa at the top, and I had a door of Ghana and it said, "Welcome to Ghana." And at the time, the funny thing is, I didn't want to move to Ghana. The only thing I wanted to do was spend Christmas here, because I was like, oh, people come in. I've heard that, some of my friends are going to Ghana for Christmas. It's like 2016. And I was like, it would be great. And that was like the beginning of 2016. I was like, it would be great to kind of go there and just spend Christmas. Before a year was up, I was moving here. And then I was like, I looked back and I was like, wait, hold on. I'm now working for BBC Africa. And then I'm traveling everywhere around Africa. And it was like, wow. But when you do these vision boards, I think it's very important to kind of also pinpoint, but then you also need to, it's not good enough. A lot of people kind of just do the board. That's not enough. You need to also be doing, and it sounds strange, do the work. You're like, yeah, a lot of times they tell you just do these vision boards and then you kind of just don't think about it. But what people often forget is that actually you need to be, so like, let's say you're going to meditate. By the end of the meditation, when you're kind of really calm and you're at that state of like calmness, visualize whatever is on your board or whatever that image of you kind of seeing yourself.
Exactly.
And you know what was very important? Like, I'd put it on the wall that kind of faced my bed. So as soon as I wake up, I'd see the vision board and I'd be like, even though I'm thinking, I have to go to this job today, I'd be like, actually, if I keep working every day, this is what this life can be mine. Like, I can actually get that.
So it's not enough to make a visual board.
No.
You have to see it physically. Feel it. And also constantly bring it back up in your mental state.
And I think one of the best ways, and people will be like, what? When you're feeling super low and super down, and you're like, I'd get a lot of fits of rage, like it's really bad, but I'd be like, oh my gosh, why am I getting a train to work? And there's always people bashing me, and I'd be so angry. And I'd be like, visualize. And it was so weird, but that kind of energy, because when you visualize, often you have to try and feel it. Feel that happiness that you would feel when you have all of this, right? Yeah. And that feel, and it actually makes you euphoric to some point. But I decided that, you know what, I'm going to use this anger, whatever. I need to change my mood because I can't arrive at work like this. And I'd visualize. And I think those are probably some of the strongest times that I've visualized, because that energy is like that ball.
Into it. Yeah.
And you turn that anger into Because power is power, right? It's a possibility, yeah. And lo and behold, it's like the times where I'll be like, what am I doing with work? And I'm not getting where I want to get. A couple of hours later or the next day, I'd receive like, hey, we'd like to call you in for a casting. And I'd be like, wait, this thing works. This thing works. Yeah.
And, you know, I've been there, and I was just there this morning. And I think it's when you find yourself sort of questioning some of the deepest, darkest moments, or just moments of just questioning and saying like, am I really cut out for this? Can I really do this? You know,
but there's no other option. That's the I think this is the thing, you know, when you know it's something that you're supposed to do, it's like, you know, you'll wake up and you'll be like, can I even do this? Am I good enough? Blah, blah, blah. But then you're like, if I don't do this, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay doing this old job? And then that would motivate me, because I'd think, no, and I saw a life coach for a bit, and we did some amazing work, and it was also using visualization. And it was mostly around money. And I was like, you know, I kind of want to do really well financially and all of this. And so she would get me to visualize myself in 5 years' time if I stayed on this path. So I was like, okay, if I'm still working in this job in 5 years' time, I'm probably going to live in like this really small, dingy apartment. You know, maybe it's run down. And then she was like, and now think 5 years down the line, if you've made those changes, where do you see yourself?
Right.
And just seeing yourself in that low point, you're like, I don't want this for my life.
I want to take a step back.
Yeah.
Because you made a vision board, but for someone who's never made a vision board.
What is a vision board?
What is a vision board? And also, how do you even get one done? How do you even make one?
Okay, so for me, a vision board was like a whole situation.
Yeah.
It started off with me using A4 piece of paper, but then I was like, that's too small. Right. So I would use like A2, sometimes A1.
Like a poster.
Like a poster,
right.
Okay?
Large poster.
And people often think, oh, where am I gonna get this? No excuses. I used to, if I didn't have big enough paper, I would stick A4 with sellotape on the back. It doesn't matter because it's gonna be covered.
You could also get a piece of cardboard and from like an old box, an old carton.
Yeah, that can also work, yeah.
And then stick A4 white pieces of paper on top.
On top of it.
Yeah.
You could even use the brown board, like, you know, that would be fine, yeah. And then, okay, so a vision board is basically what kind of things do you want in your life, or what kind of images make you feel happy. So for me, I would do different tricks. So I'd say I really want, to start with, it was materialistic for me, like, amongst other things. I would make sure to put something that was a little bit more expensive than I could afford now, that I couldn't afford right now, but I would love. So I put a pair of shoes. And it was like, it wasn't even super expensive. It was like maybe £40, like $50 or something like that. But I was like, I can't afford this right now, but it would be great if I could have it. So I'd put that. Then I'd say, okay, job-wise, what do I want to do? So I was like, presenting. And I had some pictures of me presenting, and I realized that was stronger than other people presenting, right? So I was like, let me cut my favorite photos of me where I looked my best and I felt my best. And I'd put all of those down, right? Because I'm like, that is me at my best. That's what I want to be doing every day. And then I'd think, okay, where do I want to live? Nice house by the beach. Boom, put that down. I want a family, put that in a ring. I didn't want it at that time, but I knew this is the bigger picture of what I want in my life. And I think that's important, is that some of it you'll put there, you'll get within, let's say, a couple of months, and some of it within years. And I know it sounds like, people are like, what? You're going to put some pictures down on a piece of paper and it'll become true? But it does, because it's what you're focusing on. You know, you're not going to get everything, but you might get something that is close to that, you know, or that is even better than what you see.
Well, it's scientific, right? Like, science backs this claim that, like, the more we look at something, the more we're able to see it and visualize it. Your brain is an amazing tool and an amazing organ that essentially the thing that you focus on, your brain will begin to align and shift. Yeah. So, you know, there's a part of your brain that's responsible for basically screening things out. Mm-hmm. So if you, for instance, your perfume, there's a part of your brain that actually screens that out so you don't smell it all the time. Mm-hmm. That same part of your brain is activated based on what you tell it to focus on. So if you have your vision board, right? You have a vision board and you are always looking at it and you always say, this is what I'm focused on, this is what I'm getting, your brain will begin to make, so if your thing is, I want to be more focused and I want to get a sense of, then all of a sudden other articles that focus on focus and meditation and knowing yourself all of a sudden become, you start seeing things.
Yeah.
You start recognizing and remembering, because we get a lot of images. And so your brain has figured out what to screen out. But let's say you say, oh, I want to lose weight. Then all of a sudden your brain starts seeing all the healthy stuff, all the things that help it. Incredible organ that somehow gets us to our goals. Yeah. And in doing that, visualization and bringing attention to certain things helps your mind essentially begin to reprogram what you see in your entire senses to receive those things that's related to what you tell it to focus on. Yeah. So a visual board does exactly that,
it
right? It
does. And I think it's important also to kind of like update it every so often.
Yes.
Because some things might become outdated and it's probably not something that you want right now. And then without realizing that you're going to kind of bring it to you. So I think it's good to kind of update that.
Right.
But yeah, I would highly recommend like vision boards. And it's just you're seeing what you want. And, you know, even when you're feeling down, you look at it and it makes you feel better. You're like, I'm working towards something, even if I don't have it now. If I can be patient enough, and I think patience is very important, and to kind of not give up and you still do the work. It's not enough, I feel, to just make a vision board and then just leave it there. Like, okay, great, you're going to get some of the things, but start working towards those things. You know?
How did you build connection between what was in your vision board and what you visualized? And what was that process of visualization for you in like very like systemic terms?
Paper, right?
Yeah, so what is the relationship between visualization and vision boarding?
Okay, so that's a very good question. For me, vision board is very much a mood board of feelings and things that I want. Yeah. It doesn't have to be things. It can be, for example, if I see a beautiful house by the beach, I'm like, oh, that's where I'd like to live. Then in my head, when I'm visualizing, I see myself like going to that house. And I think it's good to kind of connect the two. But I also think it's very important there's two ways of visualizing. And when I was doing the life coaching, this is one of the tools that she taught me. For example, if you are, let's say first I'll start with, let's say you want to get rid of something, right? So let's say I want to get rid of the fact that I feel guilty and a bit, I used to feel very anxious if I spoke out. So for example, she took me to that situation of when I felt awkward, and she got me to look at myself from a bird's eye view and amp up that situation and then squash it down into a ball. So that you're kind of, those feelings that you have towards that, you make it small. But then I was like, hold on a minute. If that's when I want to get rid of something and I'm seeing it from above, so I'm disassociating myself from the situation. If I'm visualizing and I want the thing, it's not good enough to visualize it from a bird's eye. I need to visualize it like I am in this vision, in this actual vision that I have in my head. So for example, for me, I am in a car. I haven't driven since I passed my test, but anyways, I'm in this like nice car and I'm driving into the driveway of my house and I have like my children in the back. I think I have like 3 or 4, I don't know whose children those are, but I have like some children and I drive and then I'm opening the doors and we're going in towards this house and it's the houses that I have on Pinterest. That's another thing, get Pinterest and because if people think, where am I gonna find these images? Get on Pinterest. I know algorithms are annoying for other things, but they are great for Pinterest because you'll keep getting images that you're kind of interested in. And I'll tell you another story after about pain relief. I think they work for pain relief. But so I see myself, I'm driving, and I see this beautiful house, and I come in, and it's midday. And I think these are kind of interesting clues. It's like, so it's midday, so does that mean that I'm not working full time then? Okay, that means I'm my own boss, I don't know, and for a long time, I don't know where I'm coming from because I don't think that really matters. And I think visualization, a lot of the times it's like, think about more the feeling and the house I can get technically with any job, let's say. Because if you start getting stuck on one job that you want to do, I mean, fine if you want to do just one job, but it's better to kind of think of the overall view. But I'm happy. So whatever I'm doing, I'm happy. And that's kind of allowing myself to kind of navigate through different jobs and not be stuck at one job.
I think it's important to note that the starting point is not so much what you see yourself doing.
It's how you
Yes, it's to go with the being. Like, what
Yeah.
is the experience of being that for you is sort of like the highest sense of being?
Yeah.
Is it security? Is it joy? I mean, all these are connected. And I think once you start from there, you begin to build your life around that. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was to think about success or fall in love or all the things that we strive towards. And rather than say, this is success, say this is what success feels like.
Yeah.
And this is what falling in love feels like. And this is what getting the dream job should feel like. Because that is a very, very telling experience. And if you can, because you can get to what you think success is and realize that you're totally unhappy.
Yeah.
And then what? You're going to be fighting to change that situation.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to also say, okay, but success feels like contentment. Mm-hmm. So you get to a place where you're content and your life might look very different from what you initially defined as success. But what you're experiencing is contentment. And you're like, actually, I've been living my life to be content. And I finally feel contentment. And so here I am.
Yeah.
I'm successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find that sort of experience, I believe, delivers a lot more
than if you have 100%. Because I feel like, so this has been the one kind of visualization that I've had since I've ever started. Mm-hmm. And there's times where I question it now because I've realized that trying to control too much is not good. Because a lot of the times when I got the job, like let's say the big break, it's when I was actually doing less of things, when I felt less in control and I let things just be. And that's kind of when it came. Yeah. But I feel like when you're doing the visualization, I think it's important as well. Like, for example, I go in and I see my husband. I don't know what he looks like. And I think that's so important because it's like, don't pinpoint on someone that you're dating right now because he might not be your husband. Exactly. So you're kind of just seeing that as like, that is, whatever that person is. And then, asking yourself, what is success? And then also, super important, pretend you have it already. Pretend, like for me, I'd visualize things and I'm like, that's already me. I'm on that journey.
It's like making a decision to choose that experience. Because if you say you want, you will be in a constant state of want. But when you make a decision that's the journey I have chosen is... And I have. There's a lot of... Whatever comes after the word or the word I. It's very powerful.
I am.
And I am is even more powerful.
Yeah.
And whatever comes after I am, you gotta be very careful what you say after those words.
Because you're gonna get that.
Because you're gonna get that.
Yeah.
So let's talk tools. Someone is watching and they want to know, okay, I get this whole visual board thing. Go to Pinterest, get up a bunch of magazines, cut it out like a ransom note, and create this visual board that I can put on my wall, put it somewhere near my bed, so the moment I open my eyes, I see it. While I'm meditating, while I'm praying, while I'm doing praise and worship, whatever my process is for getting closer to God, visualize that future for myself. But if there were other tools that you would recommend, what would you recommend?
Okay, so one of the books that really, really, really helped me was the Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. Yeah. That was amazing because there's actually two books. There's the one that you can read and then there's like a workbook.
Okay.
And so you can actually be doing some of the, because I find, often it's like, there's exercises in there and it's a bit like, okay, now I have to do the work. So much easier when you have like, here's the work and here's the workbook and there's lines and fill this out, Definitely that one. I would say overall, find out what you're interested in and read more books about that. Like for me, psychology was an interesting thing that I really wanted to learn about and I still use now. So a lot of the books by Malcolm Gladwell. Outliers, Blink were amazing. Those are the two that kind of stand out for me amongst his big selection. What else? There's a book called The Big Leap by, I think it's Pink, not Pink the singer. I think it's like David H. Pink, something along those lines.
Yeah.
That was amazing because it kind of makes you realize that you have different levels where you're kind of working at and kind of getting you to that bigger level.
Yeah.
But visualization, there's so much like online on YouTube. Like I love Marie Forleo.
Yeah, of course. So do I.
100%. Then Ariana Huffington.
Okay.
Like I listened to her podcast. That was amazing because when you listen to how other people have done it, you're more motivated, right? You're like, oh, okay.
It's possible now.
It's possible, yeah.
But how would you say, how would you say vision boarding and visualization has really made the difference in how you live your life, how you see your career, how you see your future, how you engage with your future?
There's times where I know that I'm going to be going to an event and I'm going to be meeting some key people, but I don't know if I'm going to get to speak to them.
Right.
I visualize those situations. I visualize how that situation is going to go. So, and there's another thing when you learn about visualization in this book, Creative Visualization, is that there's different colors for when you kind of visualize something. So if you want, let's say you're going to an audition, someone once told me, visualize like a green light coming out of you. Visualize happiness, visualize, because people feel your energies, right? They feel it, it radiates, yeah. So for me, it's so important. Sometimes I feel really like, I'm feeling very like down or depressed or whatever, and it happens like more often than not, actually. And I know I'm going to an event and I'm like, I need to raise my vibrations because right now I'm not radiating at a level where anybody's going to want to talk to me. Right. So I will listen to music, I will visualize the situation, and I'll visualize me being super happy and meeting the people. And lo and behold, a lot of the times I'll meet the person and we'll exchange contacts. If there's one last thing that I did is write myself a letter. Yeah. And I did that a year ago, and when I opened it, I actually cried. Yeah. Because it's like, this is what I would really like, like, hey, Emmeline, you are this, you have this, like, I know you can do this, and I hope that you get to this point by next year. Like, I believe in you, I know you can do it. And I opened it and I cried because I was like, some of these things have happened. And at the time of writing it, it felt so far away. Like, it felt like, I believe it will come, but is it really gonna come? Like, because it felt like it was so far removed from my current reality when I wrote the letter. But I was like, no, let's have some belief, put it in and open it a year later.
I love it.
That's great.
Thank you so much for our discussion. Well, there you have it, vision boarding and visualization for the future for success. Now, Emmeline says, visualize what you want, create a vision board, and in moments of prayer, meditation, of just calm and quietness, begin to visualize it. It's also important that in the moments where you feel your lowest and you're most angry, channel that anger into visualizing the future that you want and bring it into your present. Thank you, Emmeline. I really enjoyed this conversation. And hopefully everybody can use this to just really solidify like a dope 2020. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.